Okay, we have a good number to start, so we don't need to wait till 8:10. I hope all of you can hear me. Okay,
Yes,
good.
please.
Thanks. Okay, thanks for confirming. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another HTB Kenya meetup session. So, this is our 41st session, and in today's session, we won't be pulling boxes, rather, we'll be doing an intro into the cloud. So, our speaker of the day is called Faith Olinga. She is an AWS certified solutions architect working at Cooperative Bank. So, she where she works as an enterprise on enterprise banking systems and digital transformation initiatives. She previously worked at Amazon in cloud support and is also a graduate of the University of Nairobi and an alumni of the CyberSafe Foundation. So, in today's session, she'll be taking us through the Cloud Security Alliance framework. We'll also cover topics like identity and access management, among other things. So, Faith, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours. Kindly note that in today's session, we'll also be giving 3 VIP plus vouchers. We were not able to get the cubes on time, so that's what we leave for this session. We'll have cubes from the next session, which is next week. When you're ready, you can start.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lentine, and for the opportunity and even for introducing me. And I'd also like to say that I am thankful to the guys who joined, and I love that you have the hunger and desire to learn about security from now the perspective of the cloud. And I do hope that this session is worthwhile for you and you will come here knowing something and to inspire you to even advance and get deeper into it. So, yeah, I can start, but probably I can give a background. Okay, Linton has already introduced me, but also I've been part of Cyber Shuja for those who've heard of it. Yeah, back then when they had the security module running for free. I'm not sure about right now, but those are like some of the platforms that you can leverage on if your desire is to get into this. And there's also AWS Restart, but I'm not sure if it was opened this year. But yeah, so we can start. So, okay, from this session, it's going to be more theoretical than practical because I wanted to just I'll make sure that we are all on the same page as we start out, and so that it's a journey, making sure that we don't just do it once and then it ends like that. So this one will be more of slides and just showing you how security now shifts from on-prem to the cloud, and we're going to use an analogy of a company, and then now we see how their security sits, and because they want to move their workloads to the cloud, we see now how it's going to shift because it's a concern for most of the companies when they want to move. And these are the things that they're worried about, and they need someone who can be able to show them how to go about the issue. So, yeah, there will be follow up sessions from this one. So, the next sessions are the ones which are going to be practical, and I will leave you with the links that you can research on just as you prepare for the same because we are going to look at labs that are publicly available. You don't have to pay for them to access them. But then now you will have to configure your system to be able run these scenarios the way they are expected to, because we won't have a virtual room. I'm not using Hack the Box labs or any other security platforms labs. I'm using some scenarios that are on GitHub and others which are just based on someone's website. But I'll show you all about that as we continue. Yeah, so that I don't bombard you with so much at the beginning. So okay, let me just note it down so that I don't forget. Then I'll tell you when the session comes to an end. Okay. So up to there, but is there anything that someone would like to raise? Oh, okay. I think we can
Recording
proceed.
in progress.
Can proceed then. So where we are going to start, there is a framework in the cloud which is known as.
Just an interruption. There's someone who raised their hand.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Hand. Okay. Never mind. You can proceed. The session is being live streamed on YouTube, so it will be available. It's available from now till the end of time. Victor, yes, you could ask your question before you begin.
Could you please present the slides in presentation?
I've tried to get it, but I can't. I'm using Linux. I just switched my operating system, so I'm still learning how to navigate it.
Okay.
I don't know, but I believe if I search well enough, I can find it. Is it okay now? Oh, okay. Because now on my screen, I can see it has changed. It's actually covering the whole screen. But now I can't. Okay. Thanks. Okay. And that way? Oh, no. Okay, not yet. So let me just continue.
Recording
Hi.
stopped.
Are you using multiple screens?
No. It's only one.
Okay, then if it can't like the whole screen, what you can do is you can just minimize the tab on the left that shows your screen slides. So it just gets zoomed in.
Okay. So is that better now?
That should help a bit.
Okay. I believe we can proceed then.
Faith,
Yeah?
just check if you can see what you call. There's a slideshow there in the middle there. Just see if you can, and then start from that first one. Start from the first slide.
When I do that, on my screen it pops out. But then, yeah, for you guys, you are still seeing the same.
Okay, no, it's fine.
It's probably because you're using one. You're sharing a particular web page or a particular screen, so you need to change that if you want to do that.
But I'm only using one screen. I probably have not gotten you well.
Are you sharing
I
just
think what you
one?
mean is you've shared a particular window and not
Oh, not the entire screen.
screen, rather. I think that's what he means.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry for my wording.
Oh, okay. So let me try and change. Okay. So, has it changed now?
Yes, it's perfect now. Thank you.
Okay. So we were here. Okay, we can proceed. So as I was saying, just to make sure we're all on the same page, because I know probably there are people who are totally new to the cloud, the people who've been here and the people who are like experts in this, but I want us to sort of come together. Let me start from the point of, we've heard of the OSI model. Okay, when it comes to networking, there's a standard way that networks are set up. based on the routers, the switches, and whatnot. And we also know that there is the ISO 27001, and there's also other frameworks like PCI DSS and the likes. So these are standards that were set to like govern how the systems are going to communicate and how they're going to handle issues, just to make sure that there isn't any sort of miscommunication when they come together, because they have their own different ways of doing things. And now from that framework, there was also another one that came up when we now started to shift things to the cloud, because they noticed that different providers are having their own way of doing things, and somehow they don't work well together, because we get to a point that there are concepts like multi-cloud systems and so on, and then we come to realize that when they're not able to communicate together, then they need to have a way of synchronizing everything and having a standardized way when it comes to how the systems are supposed to be set up. So from that whole back and forth and the friction between now the systems as they were moving to the cloud, the guys who are involved decided to now sit together and come up with what we call the Cloud Security Alliance Framework. And from here, it has like 14 domains, which are based on as you look at how to migrate and even run your systems in the cloud. This is not really clear, but let me try and show you the one that is. I have this documentation. This is actually the guidance that was made by the team that sat together when cloud was coming up. And from there, they now decided on the domains and how things are going to be built. They also work with the cloud security. Okay, from this framework, if you get certified, you will have a certification in cloud security knowledge, which is known as CCSK. So actually, this whole document, in short, it's like it tells you what CCSK is all about. And it starts from the basic concepts of how the cloud is set up, and then now it gets deep into how security looks like, how it mirrors what on-premise looks like, and the changes that come with the cloud, and the benefits of using the cloud rather than using an on-prem setup. So if I can move forward in this documentation, here in the table of contents, as you can see, this is just what I extracted and placed in my slide, this specific page. And okay, let me expand it so that you can see. You see, we have like 14 domains in total, and the first one is just talking about the concepts and architectures. You'll get to find that when you sit here for quite some time, the services provided by AWS are similar to the services provided by Azure, though there might be some small changes in the configuration, but you get that, okay, when we look at networking, this is what they offer, this is what the other one offers. When we look at, let's say, a server, they have their own way of naming a server, but you get to realize that a server is just a server, no matter who is the provider. So aspects like that come into play, and it's based on what they decided from this framework. So we have the concepts, we have governance and risk management, we have legal issues. Because at the end of the day, we have to look at all these things. You don't just look at the technical stuff alone. There's the way that business comes in, there's the way that the whole, how we are generating profits, how we are making sure that our customers are safe. And this all falls in the section of looking at governance, risk, and compliance. That's where the whole domain 2 and domain 3 fit, or actually even domain 4, and also auditing fits here. And then now, okay, so they decided to also pick on governance in itself under domain 5. And then in domain 6, they look at the management plane and business continuity. In case there's a failure, how long does the system take to come back up? How are we routing the users to a different server when one has failed? What are the changes being done over there? How, and also how does disaster recovery look for us? And then we look at infrastructure security. And when we talk about infrastructure, it's majorly now the compute workloads. When I speak of compute, I mean the servers, like where now whatever you're going to build is going to run. The host, let's say now the computers, which are now the servers that whatever you're building is going to run on, the networks, how the routing and switching is being done. But now, okay, you now look at that from the perspective of it has now shifted to the cloud. And then aspects like virtualization and containers, this fits into when we talk about and how deployment is being done, Docker. When you hear about DevOps, how does it look like when you now move to the cloud and aspects like that? And then we look at incident response. So whenever someone has tried to attack you guys, how are you going to now capture? What have you set in your system to be able to detect that there's an anomaly, and how are you going to capture it, and also how are you going to remediate? Does someone have to get into the system immediately to check, or are there ways that you have automated, let's say, a playbook that can help you to mitigate an issue based on the severity, or there's a script running that can be used to cater to the same? So this is where incident response fits. And under this, you'll start hearing concepts like CM and SOAR. CM in full is Security, Incident, and Event Management. So this is where incident response sits. And there's also SOAR, SOAR. I'm not sure about the actual wordings for that, but you can search for it. But I know that is where those concepts fit under domain 9. And then we have application security. When you're writing your code, how do you make sure whatever you're going to build is secure? Or do you wait for when you're done and you're now just about to ship it or take it to production is when you remember you're supposed to make sure that your system is secure? So application security fits under domain 10. And then we have domain 11, data security and encryption. Actually, data security is a very big issue because this is where the databases are going to fit. And you see when they say that data is the new oil, something like that, especially in the age of AI. So data can either make or break your system based on how you have securely architected, where it's sitting, how it's moving, who is accessing it, and what they can do to it. And then also there's encryption, making sure that no one can come and break into your system, because now there's a way that you have translated what can easily be understood into something that can only be decrypted by someone else who has a key for getting into whatever it is that you have sent. So you also look at how encryption changes when you're moving to the cloud. And under domain 12, we have identity, entitlement, and access management. In security, there's usually something said that a user is the weakest link and the first point of entry into a system. So when we talk about identity, entitlement, and access management, this governs who can access the system, the rights and privileges they are given, and like from the point of entry, how are we making sure that this is someone we know? And this is also where always have to verify first that this person belongs to your organization before you're able to allow them in. So when we also look at the SEM, you are supposed to place boundaries on what someone can do and what they can't do. And there's also something called defense in depth, whereby you don't have just one layer. You have multiple layers, so that if an attacker is able to break the first one, they'll get a second one. Like, it's not actually if they're able to break the first one, then they're into your system. When they break the first one, they still have a second one where they have to navigate how to pass through it. If they break the second one, there's also another one, and so on and so on. So this is now the defense in-depth approach. And when you look at it, there are actually very many frameworks under defense in-depth. There is something called Security Artichoke, which you can also look into at your own free time. Yeah, and then we have security as a service. Whenever you hear anyone mentioning something as a service, it's usually that they are offering you the ability to use it, but then when it comes to maintenance, it's them who are maintaining it. So it's a concept that has come majorly with the cloud. Actually, you hear almost everything is as a service, but then now it's just a way of naming that translates to we've given you to access, but then we are managing it in hindsight, how it's running and being configured. And then now we have domain 14 related technologies. This is where machine learning fits, AI fits, just to mention but a few in the current age that we are in. Yeah, and also aspects like IoT, because now people are moving their data in IoT into the cloud, and you find that the public cloud providers are offering solutions that can be used to handle such. Yeah, up to there, is there any question?
No question.
Okay. So continue to look into this document, because I've now looked at it on the domain perspective, and I want to also speak about these architectures. It's actually a really nice document. Even if you're new to the cloud, it's a way of introducing you to now how everything is being set up there. I'll actually send it together with the slides once we finish, so that you can just get a grasp of the same. Yeah, so and here you can look at how, when they speak about the cloud, this is majorly how it looks like from a high level, because we have the public cloud where we hear of Azure, AWS, GCP. The private cloud is now one that is just situated in, let's say, a certain company alone. It's for them alone, and they're the only ones who can access that system and whatever is being configured in there. But for the public and private, and there's also community. Something they usually say about community. Don't know if I'll find it here. Yeah. It's shared by several organizations who have a similar concern. So if I can come back here, you see the offerings they give. They have SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. And you see everything is being mentioned as a service, as a service, as a service. So based on the amount of control that you can have on a system, that's why they are defined into 3 service models. And you have software as a service. This is majorly, actually, I feel like we have been interacting with software as a service for the longest, but we didn't know it's software as a service, because let me take a random application, like what? Let's say something like YouTube. You type it in your browser, it opens, you get in, you search whatever you're looking for, a certain video you're looking for, and you watch. This is someone's system that you're just accessing, do what you want, and then you'll get out of it and move on with your other things. So in this case, when YouTube is down, or when they are upgrading their system, you will just come and see, oh, they have changed, this layout isn't the same, they've changed their colors and things like those, but you don't have any control on whatever they do. You just come access, you just come into the system, log in with your account, watch the videos you want, and then you log out. But for them, they're the ones managing everything. So software as a service, you have the least amount of access to this system, and then now it goes on increasing. So when we look at platform as a service, under this one, just give me a minute. So it provides development or application platforms such as the database and application such as the database, where now you go code. I'm trying to look for a practical example. I don't know if I can get one. But okay, in short, what I'm trying to get at is the amount of control you have on a system increases from SaaS to the platform and to infrastructure as a service. So when you look at infrastructure as a service, you are allowing your servers to now run on the cloud. Like, you're the one who is going to configure how the server will be sized, the RAM, CPU, and so on. But then when it comes to software as a service, it's majorly the user who, it's majorly the provider who is managing everything, from the servers, from the networks, from the amount of storage that they're giving you, from the RAM. yes, and whatnot. And then now when you look at, as I go up, there's resource pooling, and then you can see now it's, I don't confuse you with this, but it's majorly now what runs on top and how it changes. So because the service models are what lay the foundation, and then now from there, you are allowed to now build on top of what they have provided for you. There's something else I also wanted to look at over here before I close this document. I think it's this one, the reference architecture. So you're seeing how now when it's broken down, as you look at this side on my right, there is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Under IaaS, there are the facilities, the hardware, the abstraction, and then now connectivity and delivery. Then APIs now come here. But when you look at platform as a service, it's like they're giving you the integration layer that now you are going to build on. Yes. You see now the way how, let's pick an example like Safaricom. They give you the larger APIs, and then now you can integrate when it comes to payments and so on. So this can fit in such an example. And then now we speak of
Faith,
yes.
sorry for interrupting. There's someone who's asked, explain an API.
An API.
Yeah.
So an API, okay, let me just pick the simplest example. And you want to go to the kitchen and tell to talk to the, and now the waiter is the one who will go. So when this, so the waiter is like an API more or less, because they help with the integration between an application and what is being done in the back end. I can use an example of, okay, let's say in banking, for example, you have a place where transactions are being done, and then now you have, let's say, the layer now for the APIs, and then now from there you have now the internet banking or the mobile application that is now being used by customers when they want to, let's say, take a loan or deposit money and things like those. So when they, let's say they take a loan, they initiate the process on the application, then the API is the one to now fetch whatever they want to do, send it to now the backend where things are being done, and then now it creates that, yeah, it books that loan now for you. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question. Okay. So we can proceed. Oh, they were saying now for Safaricom Daraja APIs, you see, let's say an example of a fintech. A fintech, I usually feel like it's more of a bank, but now on a smaller scale, and they want to make payments through M-Pesa, but they need to integrate with the M-Pesa platform to be able to make payments in their system. Also, let's say when you are buying a ticket for an event, and then now you are told, you're just given, let's say, a pop-up, what's it called? They do an SDK push, and then now you just see a pop-up on your screen telling you insert PIN, and you wonder, okay, this is from Safaricom, but yet you had bought the ticket from an application, from a website online. Yeah, so that's how it works, because there is an integration being done between your application, the API, and what Safaricom does now. Yes, that's another example. And then now, so when we come to software as a service, see now data sits here, the application sits here, there are the APIs as well. Based on whether you are the one who is configuring these APIs or they are done by someone else and your work is just integrating. Well, now we have the presentation platform. The presentation is usually more of what you see at first when you open a website. the user interface, what you can do there, and now how it translates to what is being done on the back end. Yeah, that is all from this document for now. But you can just take your time, go through it, and see how cloud even came about. Actually, something that can help you to actually understand what cloud is the internet. Because now where the internet came from, everything was being done in a way that it's, how do I put it? It's like, okay, I don't want to use the word on premise. I'm looking for another word, but that's the only word coming to mind. And then now they decided to shift and be like, okay, we can shift to the internet. And now things are just moving virtually, like in a way that we don't see. And that is where the cloud came in. Actually, something interesting is cloud is just a marketing term, which is based on how things moved from being done on premise to now being done on the internet. So you find that whatever you're now interacting with is software defined, and it's not being defined by you configuring it in your system directly. So when you hear anything software defined, just know it's shifting to the internet. And when the internet comes out, you realize, okay, there's something, when you look at networking, there's something called software defined networking, SDN. You can also go and look at that, because it's majorly the internet and cloud coming together to now conduct what networking will do from on-prem. Yeah. Even when you look at a company like AWS, where it started, because I mean, most people know Amazon, the shipping company, but AWS is mostly known to guys who are into tech. They don't know much about what AWS does. But then when Amazon was growing, and then now they noticed that when it gets to seasons like Christmas, there are so many orders and they're not able to cater to them because their systems are crashing. You see now, like the whole aspect on KRA and filing last minute, and then the system goes down and you're stuck there. So picture a scenario like that, but now on a global scale, because now people are shipping gifts all over, for example, during Christmas, and they're using the Amazon platform to do that. But then now, because of these many orders, Amazon realized that they're not able to cater to during peak seasons. So what they decided to do is increase their capacity when it comes to the servers that are handling these applications and how the infrastructure is looking like. So when they increased the infrastructure, they noticed that when it's off peak, these servers are just lying idle. And they're now incurring cost. That's why you start hearing things like capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Because capital expenditure, you only spend it once, and now it's left to you to now maintain whatever you have bought once. But when you look at operational expenditure, it's something that recurs over time. So when they bought now these servers and they're lying idle, they notice that their capital expenditure is high, and then now they're left to maintain these systems that are just idle. So what they decided to do is they rent out these servers to people. People can then deploy the applications there, and then now they charge for deploying the applications on their servers. So that's how AWS came about. And I know like it's one of the biggest cloud providers at the moment. So from there now, yeah, they got a buy-in from the customers who are running the applications, and they were able to run it for them. And you realize that it cuts down on their cost, and you get to only pay for what you're using. And when you stop deploying the application, or you shut down your server that you have deployed in AWS, you're not charged anymore, because now it's like you didn't just buy something that will lie around over there and it's not doing anything. Yeah, so it's majorly just moving things from running on your premise, and then now they're running over the internet in a server that is placed somewhere else. Yeah, that is it in short. So we can move back to the slides. Okay. Opening your own document. Okay. know what's being shared on my screen. It's an infinity window.
Okay, Faith. So maybe to avoid you having to look at the chat, I can just read the questions out to you.
Okay.
So the question that's being asked is by Brian is he's looking for more hands-on experience rather than just reading the documentation. Do you have any recommendations for platforms or courses where he can learn through guided labs and practical exercises?
Yes, I do. And that's what I'll share at the end. I didn't want to bombard guys with so much information at the start because I understand that there are beginners, there are mid-level, and there are experts in the call. So I wanted to start from a foundational level first, and then now I'll share resources as we get to a close because it's a number of multiple sites. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I
Thank
will.
you
I
so
will.
much.
Yeah. Please remind me if I do forget. Okay.
Okay, will do. So,
Okay. So this is the analogy that we are going to work with. I don't know how my screen is sharing. It's sharing. Okay. So this is the analogy we're going to work with. We have a company called Ubunifu that is trying to migrate the systems from an on-prem setup and switch to the cloud. They're worried about how security will change and they want guidance on how to secure their resources during and after the migration. Then when we study their on-prem posture, we find that, okay, yes, they do have user identities. The aspect you're speaking about on access management, the users are defined, the groups that they are in, let's say if it's HR, if it's ICT, yeah, those relevant groups, and the permissions are being managed via Active Directory users. Actually, if you go and look at, okay, let me just mention because now guys want also hands-on stuff. So if I check on TryHack Me, they have foundational labs on Active Directory. So you can also go and look at the same if you are interested in Windows AD, how it's set up and what you can do with it. Do you want to look in? But okay, now you've seen the name of the site and where you can find it. So you can just check on it if it's something that would interest you. And then they also have DMZs because they don't want to expose their traffic to the internet. So they have a way of isolating it so that when it comes in, it stays there first before they're able, before it now moves into their actual system. So they have DMZ in full is demilitarized zone. Yeah, you can also read about it. Actually, it's a concept that began in US from the US military. It's so interesting. Yeah, you can look at it as well. And then they are, the network is configured using physical cables. When you look at Ethernet cables and the likes. So their network is centrally positioned there. You can't just access what they're running on their site when you are not present there. Yeah, and then the internal network boundaries from concepts like firewalls. When we look at encryption, they are managing physical storage vaults. If you've heard of HSM, hardware security modules, so when they talk about encryption, anything that changes, it has to be manually configured and looked at piece by piece. Then to synchronize the database to a backup site, the database sits on a server that is in the company, but then the backup site is somewhere across town. So also when they talk about disaster recovery, it's tedious and you don't know what may break and at what time and how long it will take for you to restore the system. So the other findings are the server updates are documented in change logs. detailed configuration checklists are maintained, which is a good approach, yes. But then now when an attacker accesses your system and they are able to see the logs, because they're able to see the logs of who has access to what and at what point, it's quite risky. But now we're going to look at how the cloud can help to mitigate such an issue. And then they were saying they schedule disruptive and heavy security scans on production servers during off-peak hours without looking at how long it will take, what it will affect, if things go wrong. Because, okay, they have not factored in concepts like automation of security scans. And they also draft strict policies to protect customer names, phone numbers, and financial details, which is a really good approach. But they want to know, if they move to the cloud, how are the policies going to change? What can they do differently? What risk will expose their users if they just move without considering how they had customized such policies before? And then security testing is trusted as a final inspection right before software goes live, rather than checking it while it's being built. The concept of application security. Do you just come in to configure security at the end when we are now ready to move to production? Or do you come in from the moment when we are architecting this system, from the moment when the developer is writing their code? Do we make sure that they're using the right security principles, and what are the right security principles? And even as we move to the cloud, how can we still use those right security principles when it comes to application development?
Faith, there's a
So from there, okay, from now, okay.
sorry for interrupting. I get to do that a lot.
It's okay. It's okay.
There's a question from Julius asking, can DMZs work when you subscribe to software as a service?
Yes, they can. Oh, okay. DMZs, when we talk about a system, okay, we usually look at I feel like I'm going to confuse you. But okay, there's the aspect of compute, and then there's the aspect of a 3-tier application. So compute is majorly the servers and whatnot, and how now compute is going to connect to the network, and the network is what is going to transfer whatever is being done here in compute through the network to now the storage, where it's now going to sit like for a short time or forever. And in storage, we have files or databases. So that's that's majorly actually what the cloud looks at. And when we talk about now the 3-tier application, of course, we have the front end, and then there's the database at the back, and then we have how now it's moving when we look at the network. So the DMZ will now fit in the network. Okay, I think you'll have to remind me the question. I feel like I've spoken too much.
The question was, can a DMZ work when you subscribe to software as a service?
Yes, it can. Because wait. Yeah, it can. Because this application, as it's being built, it's just an application. And then now we have the network aspect of it. So based on how you decide to structure your network, and then now you will choose if you want to use a DMZ or how do you want guys to access your system. Yeah, but when we come to now the cloud, when I look at something like AWS, they have a concept called NAT Gateway. So NAT Gateway is what is supposed to like hide whatever is inside, and it's the only thing that can now be used to look outside your system into the internet. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question, but yeah, I was just trying to separate the aspect of SaaS is the application, DMZ is on the network layer. So you can decide to choose how you configure it differently. And even when we look at these on-prem setups that we're speaking about, like this company that we're having here, Ubunifu, they could be having vendors who provide these applications for them. They code for them, and then now they just plug into the system that Ubunifu has. And you find that Ubunifu has a DMZ. So if they have a DMZ in their network, they'll have to utilize it and see how this application from a vendor is connecting to their system, but they're still making sure that the connection is safe and the network is handled based on the protocols that have been defined. Yeah. I don't know if I've answered the question. I guess the one who raised it can just confirm. Account could be limited.
Oh, I think you can just proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have looked at the security posture of this company that we're speaking about. And then now we are going to look at now what the cloud will offer when we speak about security. When we speak of security in the cloud, there is something called the shared responsibility model, whereby security is it's an effort that is needed from both the customer and the cloud provider. But then you define clearly what can the cloud provider secure and what can the customer secure. So when we look at this, we have the security in the cloud and security of the cloud. So the cloud provider secures, the cloud provider comes at the point of security of the cloud, but then the consumer comes at the point of security in the cloud based on whatever they are deploying inside the cloud architecture. So here, as you can see from this diagram, the responsibility of the customer is looking at the applications, the platform, identity and access management, the operating system, networks and firewall configurations. And there's also the encryption layer at that point. And then now the security of the cloud, we look at the compute, the storage, the databases, the networking. So whatever they're providing for you guys, have they made sure that it is safe? Their servers, their EC2 instances, are they patched well? How do they go about that? And how do they make sure that whatever you're coming to now run on this server is not going to get compromised by an attacker? Yeah, and then we have now okay, I don't want to go deep into these regions and availability zones because we'll look at them a bit later, but it's more of how they define. You see, when I think it was last year, there's a region in US called US East 1 for AWS that went down entirely. So if you had deployed your server there, then you were not able to access your system. Yeah, so the public cloud providers have regions where their actual server sits. So now when you are deploying your workloads, it's like you're deploying on the server sitting in that specific region. And then we also have availability zones. I think every server that you deploy is supposed to have around 3 availability zones so that when one is down, you can get your workload, your server can run on the other availability zone. But then now an issue comes when a whole region is down, because now you find that these availability zones are situated inside a region. So when the whole region is down, then it means totally you can't access your server. Yeah, and then we have something called the edge locations. Edge locations, it's like they're trying to help you access your data closer to you so that it's faster and it's like you spend less time moving data across or communicating. So edge locations, they don't fit in regions or availability zones, but they are now brought closer. Let's say now the example of US East 1, and then they decide to have an edge location in, let's say Kenya. Okay, I'm trying to use Kenya as the receiver. Let's say they put their edge location in Ethiopia. So that for you who is running anything in Kenya, if you want to deploy it in the cloud, you don't have to deploy it in US East 1, but you are now deploying it in Ethiopia so that it's easier for you to access and it takes lesser time. Yeah. So from this shared responsibility model, they'll now know, okay, this is what they are still going to handle, and this is what is going to now move to what the cloud provider is going to do for them when it comes to security. Is there any question up to that point?
No question. No.
Okay, we can move on then. So when we look at the mitigation strategies, we have, they'll now have to trade their permanent hard-coded passwords for temporary assume role credentials for resource access. What I mean by this is, instead of assigning a user, okay, the way we are speaking about identity and access management, whereby you now define that this is a member of your system, let's say a member of your staff, and they are supposed to entirely access your system. What you can do instead is give them something called an IAM role. So in an IAM role, you just attach it to a specific resource for a specific amount of time. And when they're done with it, then it expires and they can't keep on accessing that resource. Because when we look at databases, actually, they are very critical. And when data is affected, it could affect a lot of things in the system. So you can just give them okay, you can define a policy, and then now you assign, you attach a role to the resource that is defined in this policy, and this resource could be a database, and you give them a duration of time that they're supposed to access, and after that, it expires. Another provision is the virtual private clouds, access control list, and micro-segmented security groups. When we look at this in virtual private clouds, okay, this is an offering from AWS. And when we look at it, the moment you create an account with them, you already have a VPC by default, because they're trying to make sure that you have secured everything that you're going to run from the moment that you're starting. And in this virtual private cloud, everything that is yours is only running in the confines of this this VPC that you have configured. So it's like a perimeter fence for your system. So they've already set up a default perimeter fence, but you can choose to set up another one where you're now going to run whatever you're building. And when you now start creating a server, you find that it's going to be situated inside the VPC that you have selected or that you have created. So this is one of the ways that they make sure you aren't accessed by anyone outside your system. And we also have access control lists. So when we look at this, they are used to define who can and who cannot access your system. So under this, it's actually a virtual firewall. Like you see the way we normally have firewalls if we were looking at an on-prem setup, this is now a virtual firewall. One thing to note is everything moving to the cloud. Okay, not everything, but like when you hear the concept of virtual, it's more of the baseline of what the cloud was built on. So an access control list is a virtual firewall which controls the inbound and outbound traffic at, okay, I don't want to use terms that may confuse people, but there's something called a subnet. So inside this VPC, you can decide to segment your network based on, let's say, HR, ICT, business. And when you segment, now you define the levels in subnets. So these access control lists are what determine what is allowed inside and outside a subnet. So it's more of a virtual firewall for defining what can come in and what can go out of this subnet. And it is stateless. This means that it means that all inbound and outbound traffic is denied until you add rules to specify which traffic to allow. So it won't remember. Yeah, like when you pass a gate and then the security guard will always check and not be like, huyu tunamjua, you can just pass. No, they have to verify first. So it does not remember, meaning it's stateless. But we also have something else called a security group. So a security group, it also works like an access control list. But then now for this, it works at the instance level. An instance is basically the server that we're speaking about. So it's like a firewall that is securing this server. And for the security group now, the opposite of it is it's stateful, meaning it will remember. Yeah. The access control list is stateless, but then now the security group is stateful. So when we look at the next one, we are speaking about key management service. They can have a centralized key management service, or they can also use Azure Key Vault for encryption. These are the encryption offerings that are given by public cloud providers, and I've picked on KMS and Azure Key Vault. KMS is for AWS. So you can also look into that. And the next one is for their 3-tier applications, they can be deployed across multiple availability zones and physically isolated data center clusters for automatic failover. This is more on what I was speaking about regarding regions and the availability zones. Yeah, and also now how the failover will be done, just to make sure that disaster recovery is also handled. And we have, yeah, I think that's it. The last one is a repetition. So when we look at the next one, we have building automated response playbooks. If an anomaly is detected, a script instantly isolates that specific virtual server from the network, takes a snapshot of its memory for your forensic team to review, and launches a fresh clone. So yeah, I'll put in brackets Sentinel and Guard Duty. But let me just focus on the statements first before talking about what is in that bracket. So when we look at these response playbooks, it fits into what I was speaking about on incident response, whereby we have tools that are used to detect an anomaly. And then now once you detect an anomaly, what do you do? How do you check the severity level? Was it just a false alarm, or is it something that should be handled very fast? Is it something that will bring the whole system down, and what should be done about it? Does someone need to come in physically and check and troubleshoot? What is being lost? How much have these guys accessed? What are they currently doing in your system? Stuff like that, and knowing just how to remediate the whole issue. So, okay, let me give an example of something I worked on like this before. We were looking at a scenario on impossible travel. When I speak of impossible travel, I mean I can't log into a system in Kenya right now, and in the next 30 minutes, you see that I have logged into that same system in USA. It does not make sense for me to have arrived at USA in 30 minutes. So that is why we were referring to it as impossible travel. So this is an example of a scenario that these tools are supposed to look into, flag it, and then now from there we remediate and look at, okay, have we stored a script that can handle such an issue and log it for us, or do we need to come into the system, analyze it, and then look at the mitigation strategies around such a scenario? So an example of the offerings that are given are Sentinel, which is a resource from Azure Sentinel, and then we have Guard Duty, which is now a resource from AWS. And when we look at an example like Sentinel, they have a language for defining the scripts that now run to automate this anomaly detection and seeing how to find the solution to the issue. The language is called KQL, Coastal Query Language. So it's more of programming. Yeah, but you can look into it as well. It's really interesting. And then also we have automated discovery tools that scan your data storage planes, categorizing sensitive classification types like PII. PII is personally identifiable information, let's say name, birthday, where you come from. Yeah, just things that should be exclusive to you, but then now you had allowed, let's say, this company to access because you are creating an account with them. So in AWS, we have a service called Amazon Macie, MACIE. Okay, it's one of the solutions provided through machine learning And we know now machine learning and AI are so big. So this tool can be able to detect personally identifiable information and then sort of mask it or prevent someone from being able to access it directly. And then we also have a provision known as infrastructure as code. In infrastructure as code, it's like, okay, it borders on automating systems. So you just write your code in, let's say, Python, and this will now become a script that will be running to provision a server when, let's say, one has gone down, or okay, let's just say provision resources in general when one has failed, or yeah, when there's an issue. Like, you don't have to manually come to the system all the time and check, okay, what is down, what can I do now, and so on. And this also borders on Terraform, what Terraform does. I remember some time back this year there was a session on Terraform from, okay, I don't remember the team, but I remember there's a guy called Tway who was involved with it for around 1 month. So these are some of the initiatives that have been created to handle issues like those. So if you want to look at now infrastructure as code from the foundational level, you can look at concepts like those, like now Terraform. And then when you move into the cloud, you find that an example of a provision of that is what AWS offers through CloudFormation. So you just write your code, and then now it will provision everything for you. So you just come into your console and you see, oh, okay, there's a server, they've set up the network how it's supposed to be, they've attached everything I'm doing to a storage system, and so on. Yeah, so that is it. Is there any question up to that point?
There's someone who's asking what's the name of the tool for PII, identifying PII.
What's the
Name of the tool for identifying PII.
Oh yeah, I've mentioned it's called Macie, MACIE. Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on. So from there, we can now look at the services. Now, when we talk about security and we're looking at the public cloud, okay, I've mentioned but a few of them. But when you look at now this image here, it captures more. Actually, these services, a better way to look at them, because I can just touch on them surface level, but then now if you're really interested, you can come and look at the documentation. Though sometimes you can find yourself in a rabbit hole if you go to the documentation, because you find so many links which lead you to the next and to the next. But docs are usually one way to find everything you need. It's like the source of truth. Okay. So when you come here, my internet is quite slow. Okay. Security documentation. You see they have the shared responsibility model, best practices. Something I'm looking for. Security documentation by product. Okay, here it is. Containers, storage, databases, identity and compliance. Yeah, actually most of the things we've spoken about are just here. Cryptography, machine learning. Yeah, and so on. So you can just come pick a service. You can even challenge yourself to be learning at least one per day. So that is majorly it. So we have spoken about IAM, and there are the provisions here. When we look at something like Cognito, so in Cognito, it's like you are controlling the access from an application. Okay, but okay, let me just leave it at that. But you can go and check it more. Then we have the network. Oh, here, this shield, it's the solution that we have for preventing DDoS attacks, the denial of service attacks, but now from the perspective of the cloud. Then now when you look at data protection, the MASI that I was speaking about, HSM, Private Certificate Authority, these are just provisions, okay, to secure your data. And we have also KMS, the Key Management Service, Certificate Manager, and the Secrets Manager. Secrets are like your passwords and your usernames. And then now detection and response, where I was speaking about the CM, like Sentinel and Guard Duty. So you have Guard Duty here, config, inspector, security hub, security lake, and then now under governance and compliance, we have organizations, control tower. Control tower is like, you see now the normal tower where, like the watchtower where the security officers usually go to check for anything in the military camp. So control tower is more or less the same. Yeah, in simple terms. Then we have artifacts which are used for compliance, audit manager. So that is from AWS. Then now I try to look at it from the point of where it starts and how it moves. So we have identifying, and under identifying, you see now control tower can also be seen here. Then we have config, systems manager, trusted advisor, organization. It's like they're moving backwards from what we saw at the end to now what happens next. So when you look at protection, we have protecting your data, and then we also have protecting from the point of access management. And then we have detection. So under detection, you can see there's MASI, Guard Duty, Inspector, and Security Hub. And then under automating and investigating, we have CloudWatch, step functions, Lambda. Lambda is more of, okay, I don't say infrastructure as code, but then now it's like you are deploying things from a serverless angle. Like you don't have to go and configure a server to be able to run whatever you want. Yeah, there's a different approach to it whereby you just define it through the code and then now it will run. Okay, I don't want to lose you guys more, but yeah, like you don't have to provision the resources each at a time. And you're not provisioning, like you're not going to the server to provision whatever you want. And then we have CloudWatch, CloudTrail, and Amazon Detective. And then now when you want to now recover, we have concepts like S3. S3 is now the storage system for AWS. No, okay, not a database, but now, okay, when you look at now file storage and object storage, object is, okay. The other aspects of storage that are not databases now fall into S3 storage when we talk about Amazon. And we have also on top here CloudFormation, where the infrastructure as code fits and ops works. Yeah, that is it. There's this snapshot here. So when you talk about snapshots, it's more of you are capturing what is resident on your system at the moment so that when there's an outage, you can easily, okay, the other disaster recovery sites that you have can come up and be very similar to what you had on your production system, let's say. So this snapshot is what is taken and then it's backed up in your disaster recovery site so that when your primary site is down, you can now move to that site. Yeah, that is it from AWS. I don't know if there's a question before we move to Azure. Okay, I think we can proceed. So when you look at Azure, I usually feel like most of the services from Azure are they're more of what they have on their on-prem setup, but now it just moves to be deployed on their cloud. And then now some configurations change, but it's more or less what we usually know from Microsoft security. So you have Defender for Cloud. Entra ID is their Active Directory, but now on the cloud. Bastion, it's usually an instance for helping your private resources access the cloud, if I'm not wrong, like without exposing them. And then we have the Azure Firewall. The Key Vault is for encryption. We have Defender for identity, DDoS protection. This is similar to now AWS Shield. Then we have Web Application Firewall, Sentinel for incident response, the Azure Monitor Firewall Manager, network security groups, Azure policies and blueprints, and Azure Arc. Yeah, that is it when I look at the two public cloud providers. So, and then now here we have a sample AWS IAM role. IAM is the Identity and Access Management platform. So under Identity and Access Management, where we're saying that you can decide to attach a role to a resource and not assign a user, so that when they're done accessing that resource in the duration of time set, then now the access is revoked. So when you look at the assigning of a role, it can be done through JSON. Yeah, so you just write whatever you want, you define it, and then now you will attach it to that resource. So over here you can see the person is given the allow rule. Like you can choose to either allow or deny, and then action, they're connecting to this at DSDB. And when you look at the resource, this is where it can be found. So like the naming of where it is, you see the region here, US East 1 has been defined, the account name, and the name of that database. So this is a sample IAM role that can be defined. I don't know if we have a question up to there.
There's a question. Sorry for the, just a second.
Yes, it does. They have, there is Kubernetes services, and there's also another one I'm forgetting. And then there's one also called Fargate. Yes, so you can decide to shift and use it. Yeah. So my answer in short is yes, it does. Yes, it does. So it's more of, like, you see the way you do Kubernetes on a virtualized environment, you can now come and do it in the cloud based on what they provide that does the same. Yes. Okay, I don't know if I've answered the question sufficiently. What's the difference between K8? K8. Oh, okay. So K8, okay, K8 is just Kubernetes and Docker. So Docker is the container where whatever you're building will be packaged. It's like the theoretical way that you will place things in a box and then now carry them and move them to where you want them to be. So that movement is what we call shipping. We also use the same concept of shipping in technology, like here, in whatever we are handling. So when we look at that, so now whatever you have created that application, the files containing your code and whatnot, the secrets, you place them together in a, let's say, a YAML file. And then now, so Docker is the package that will be used to now transport it. And then now when we look at Kubernetes, that is now where the deployment comes in, because now you're going to define on which, okay, I feel like I'm using technical terms, but so Kubernetes now has the nodes where you're going to now deploy whatever you have built, because you can't just build it and have it in your laptop alone. You need to deploy it somewhere, let's say in a server that is accessed by your whole organization, for it to be able to be accessed and for it to run, or for it to even be moved to production. So Kubernetes is what will be used for that deployment. And then now from there you can define on which node it will run. Actually, also from there is when you can now see the whole aspect of high availability, so that when one node is down, you can use the other node to still access that application. So Kubernetes will now come in on that setup. It will have nodes. There's usually a master node, and then there are slave nodes under it. And so now from this, after you have deployed this application on those specific nodes, and then now you look at how you're going to automate changes. This is where concepts like Argo CD come in. Argo CD will now help with automatic changes, so that you don't have to come and check on everything and change it one by one, because that is also a way that you can introduce vulnerabilities without knowing, or cause the system to break at a time when it's not expected. Yeah, that is it. Okay, I think we can move on. So the next thing, okay, this is just still the same on IAM roles, but this is a bit more granular, where you can now define the principal, like a user, give them a role. And then now, when you talk about a federated user, it's more of you are using someone's credentials to help them to access another system with the same credentials. Yes, so we have authorization, the way we're speaking about JSON being used to define an IAM role, where you have the effects, the action, and the resource. And then actions are defined there, the services. Yeah, that is basically it. And then now it's used to access your account. When I share the slides, you can look into it more deeply. So that was IAM, and now I want to look at a sample VPC setup, just to reiterate what we have been speaking about theoretically. So when you look at this diagram, actually this is how architecture is set up when we speak about the cloud, like before we even decide to deploy, because we have to map it out first to see how they're going to communicate and to see if it's feasible before we get into the system, deploy resources, and then now we find that we're just wasting them. So if we are able to map it out first and see how it's going to communicate, and if it makes sense, then now we can move to now creating it in the actual console. So when you look at this, this is actually a region called UAssist2. There's a VPC. They were saying a VPC has, like in any setup, when it comes to the cloud and it's in AWS, make sure you define, okay, you'll have a default VPC. This will help you so that if you forget, just to prevent you forgetting and starting to create servers, and yet you have not defined the fence within which you're going to create these servers. So when you have that VPC, and then now you come in, create whatever you want inside the VPC. So you have the VPC, and then we have the availability zones. Here we have two of them. We have a public subnet, the way I was saying the segmentation. So in this public subnet, you have an Amazon EC2 instance. Amazon EC2 is just a server, in short. And then now we have, this is known as a web subnet, and we have the application subnet. So you can actually decide to define your application in a way that, okay, they were saying about a 3-tier application, where you have the application layer, there's the network layer, and then now there's the database layer. But remember that when I'm speaking about the network layer, you won't just see it has its own subnets. The network is supposed to help these resources to communicate, and these resources are the server and the database. So when I look at the server, now the EC2 instance, it's in another subnet, and then now the database is in another subnet, like the way you can see here. So yeah, and then also on this other side on the right, there is a region called US West 1. So in US West 1, there is a VPC, and then there, which is connecting to the on-prem data center. This is usually a big issue, this point here, how to connect systems that are on-premise to the cloud, because you might find someone wants to only run something specific in the cloud, but still have others running on their on-prem setup. Like they don't want to move everything to the cloud. Let's say there's data that is sensitive to them, and they don't know where it's going to be situated. So they better have it where they are sure of it instead of moving it entirely to the cloud. So here you start hearing concepts like private link, direct connect. You can just go and read about them as well. So those are ways to securely connect the cloud and the on-prem setup, just to prevent any interception or any wrong configuration. Yeah, so that is it. I think this is the final. Yeah, this is the final sample. Also a VPC. I wanted to capture an IAM setup and a VPC setup, and then now when we come next time, we will now look practically at how to structure the IAM. We'll go into the console actually. Structure the IAM, set up the VPC, and see how now things communicate securely. So here you can see you have 3 VPCs, and in each VPC we have public subnets and private subnets. And we have now the web application is in the public subnet because it's internet facing. We usually place things in a public subnet to allow them to communicate with the internet. But if something is placed in a private subnet, it's just supposed to, it's like a way of securing it to only communicate internally, but not communicate with the system outside whatever you have configured. So when we look at the private subnets, actually something interesting is everything that you create in your system, every resource that you deploy in your system is placed in a private subnet. But for you to allow a resource to access the internet, it has to be placed in a public subnet. So you might, at times when you now look at the command prompt and you're running your system, like you're running now the Linux commands to configure your system, you find that it has a tag attached as a private IP address, and you wonder why does it have a private IP address, and yet you know that this resource is internet facing. It's because as long as this resource is inside your VPC, it should be in a private subnet. So that means that it will also have a private IP address. Yeah, but when you look at this setup, what I wanted to actually bring out is when you look at the public subnet, you see that there is an application load balancer. They usually say the application load balancer should sit, if it's a web application, the application load balancer is sitting in a public subnet to help with the distribution of traffic. So the internet-facing web app has already the LB in the same subnet as it's situated. So these are things that it's easy to assume and forget when you just go into the console and deploy, instead of first looking at how everything is mapped out and then now going at it granularly and looking at how it should be set up. Yeah. That is it for now. Yeah, I think I can get your questions, and then now I can show you the resources that you can focus on for hands-on experiences as we prepare for the follow-up sessions. Yeah, that is it. Is there any question?
Sorry. dropped off for a second. Are there any questions in chat? Does anyone have any question for Faith?
You can just raise your hand. Probably it's something outside what we are doing. Even a question on what it's like working at Amazon. I don't know. It's anything random is also allowed.
You could tell us what was it like working at Amazon?
Okay. I'd say it was really interesting because it's like you see, when you're outside, you're a consumer, but now you sit with guys who build and you see how they think about things before they decide to even provision a service or change a system, or now they're releasing a new resource. Yeah, and things like that. So I can say it was really nice because you interact with people on a global scale. You're not just sitting with the guys in the Kenyan office alone. You have meetings with the South African guys, you have meetings with the guys in Dublin. At times you also get to interact with people who are in different roles across the world. But then now it does not just fall on your lap. You also have to do your due diligence, because these are things that you only learn when you're inside and when you are also proactive enough. Like you're not just sitting there. So there are sessions like coffee chats, which you have to schedule yourself and reach out to these guys. So you can schedule a coffee chat with someone who is in, let's say, sourcing, who is in Amazon, the shipping company, or in another department, and you're able to understand like the bigger picture of why how the company got to be at that scale. Yeah, so I can say it was nice because it's more of training you on what they do and guiding you on how to do it and making sure your progress is tracked, and there's someone who is always willing to help you out when you are stuck. So you're not, it's not that you are just thrown there and you figure it out on your own. No, it's more of they hold your hand, but they also want to see you putting in the work through it. Yeah, because now you find that, it was more of a training because it was an internship. So you have to be trained on what they do first for you to even be equipped enough to do it. You can't just come and you're handling production systems for customers and you don't even know what an EC2 instance is. So it was more of you're being trained on what you're doing, but it's not just reading at theoretical knowledge. You read, go practice it, come sit with your mentor and see how much you've learned through oral assessments and also through building projects. And then now you get to present this project to the global team, more or less, because now you're not working just with the Kenyan office, you're working with interns from South Africa and interns at Dublin. So you get to sit with them, you get to do even mock sessions with them. You present what you have done, they correct you on it, you build a proof of concept, they tell you, they get to like grade you on what you have done. You learn what the core business at the Kenyan office is doing because it was more of support. So you learn how to speak to customers and you get to see if they speak about their principles. They have like, I think 12 principles, customer obsession and whatnot. How are you bringing it out in everything you're doing? Yeah, it's not, you see the way we used to have, I don't know, core values, mission, vision, and we used to just see them on the notice board, or like it used to just be on our books in school, but we don't understand how they are usually used. But then now when you look at them, they make sure everything you do, you check it against their principles. They ask you, the way you tackled this, let's say, assessment from last week, how did you show customer obsession? How did you show ownership? How did you show willingness to learn? How did you show that you are curious and you are learning? And then you have to grade yourself. So there are the self-assessments. There's assessment from your manager. There's the assessment from your mentor. And you already have guys who are just waiting for you to come in and they take you through the system. So it's not more of you will get in and figure it out on your own. It's more of they wait for you to come, schedule the meetings with them. They show up, you're already given sample questions to ask them how they got there, their journey before, what they love about the place. Open, I don't know, how someone can scale up in Yeah, and stuff like that. So it was really nice. Yeah, it was really nice. It was rigorous, yes, because when it comes to like a global scale, you have to show up always. Like there's a reason why they were able to get to that scale at first, and they need to maintain that momentum. So for you to also maintain that momentum, you just have to shape up if you are inside. Yeah, so you keep up with the pace and also do your best, and at the end of the day just have fun. Yeah, that's what they say, just have fun while at it, and get to a point where if you're sitting with something to up to 2 a.m and you're unable to figure it, you don't feel the fatigue of you're not able to figure it. You still feel the urge to move on. Yeah, and find a solution to it. Yeah, you see that there's that kind of desire of, even if it stresses you out so much, you can't complain about it because you love the like you love the way being in the pit is shaping you. It's more of being in a crucible and now you come out a finished product. Yeah, so I can say it was nice. Of course, it had its own fair share of challenges as well, because now the internship, being in school, completing school, and you're juggling both at once wasn't also an easy task, but there's a way of balancing the two. Yeah, I think that's all I can say. And a lot being expected from you, so all the time you have to like show up, but you get to realize that if you get in, the experience you get in like 2 years can be compared to the experience that someone out there gets in like 5-6 years. Yeah, like in a short time, you get to do so much, and it's easy for you to even scale up if you are to like decide to move on with your career to another place. Yeah, because now with the whole aspect of AI, nothing is certain. Yeah, and also big tech is becoming, they're also like re-strategizing how they handle issues. So yeah, nowadays I'm just realizing that you need to have the parachute that will enable you to still stand even when whatever you had looked up to and it didn't satisfy you fails. Yeah. Because I know that question will come on what happened, do they retain guys or not? But then now, yeah, things are shifting, so nothing is certain. But what I can say is that we are able to, I do pray that all of us are able to have the parachute to still move on, even when we feel like this was the end goal, but then we realize it was not. Yeah, so just being able to move as things move. Don't get stuck on what happened or what changed. Yeah, I've seen questions are coming in the chat.
Okay, let me help you. One person asks, you mentioned it was working at Amazon was. Where are you at now?
Oh, I'm at cooperative bank.
Doing cloud work.
Not really. More of a solutions architect role. So you sit between the business team and the technical team to help them come to a consensus before a system is built. Yeah, and you get to appreciate how integrations are done and also how systems sit on-prem. Because, when we look at how the cloud came up, systems are running on-premise and then now they shifted. So you get to even realize that the greatest cloud engineers are the ones that were in the pits in on-prem, and then now from there, they are able to even understand things better when they get into the cloud. So it's pretty much the same I'd say.
Okay, the next question by Priscilla is, she says, thank you, Faith, for the presentation. Would you also share certifications that one can pursue to sharpen their skills?
My assumption is skills in security. But I think, Priscilla, you can probably can unmute and say, are you speaking about certifications in security or certifications in what exactly? And when it comes to security, do you want to look at cloud security or is it just security in general?
I'm guessing since the conversation is revolving around cloud, she means cloud security certifications.
Okay,
Hi,
okay.
Faith.
Hi.
The question is coming from someone who has done a bit of network security and would want to move to cloud security.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just share something. There's a certification by AWS called Security Specialty. You can look to explore that. But if you're totally new to the cloud, I would advise you start with fundamentals first, and then now you can decide to pick that because it's specialization certification. There are foundational ones, and then now, okay, let me just pick certifications in general. Yeah, and also there is one offered by Microsoft. Oh, by okay, Microsoft's not now under Azure. The one offered by Microsoft is called AZ500, Azure Security Engineer. And then the one offered by AWS is called AWS Security Specialty. Okay, I'm just picking the ones that come top of my mind, but I believe there are others. Also, the knowledge on CCSK, Cloud Security, Cloud Certificate of Security Knowledge would also help a lot. The one that I was sharing from this document, this one right here. So this is the basis of what CCSK is built on. But I'll share this document and then now from there, you can research more on it and see the bodies that offer it. I'm speaking about training and certification. I'm not seeing them. Something I'm looking for. It's under skill builder. I don't know, there's something I'm actually looking for. There is a page they have where you can see all of the certifications at once. And then now you can see how they are divided. Okay, but I believe I have answered your question. So the two that come top of my mind, and because okay, I'm also recommending them because I know they are industry standard and like from a global scale, everybody knows them. So there's one offered by Microsoft. It's called AZ500, Azure Security Engineer. And then we have the one offered by AWS, which is called AWS Security Specialty. Yeah. And also CSK.
Okay, the other question is by Joker Smoker. You mentioned something about IP addresses, private and public. How do you know if it's a public or private with the concept of CIDR?
Okay, so when I speak about public and private, if you want to know, okay, I think it's easier to look at private addresses first before I look at the public ones. So for the private addresses, if it's either starting with 192, 172, or 10, just know that is a private address. And actually, when you are in the system of a company, the moment you just see those addresses, you know, these are IP addresses for the devices inside this organization, but all the others are public. Let me. There's something I want to do. I don't know if I'll find it. Let me just search randomly fast. So you look at the first letters. You see here they're defining for you. They're defined actually by RFC 1918. When I speak about RFC, it's more of, okay, it's quote unquote, whoever came up with this standard and the documentation on whatever they were doing at that time to sort of invent what we're now using. Yeah, and it's usually based on networks. So RFC 1918 will come and define for you the 3 specific ranges, which are 10, starting with 10 to that last one, and then we have starting with 172 and starting with 192. So whenever you see any IP address starting with these values, just know that it's a private address. Yeah, let me see this RFC 1918. If you really want to understand how networks were set up, these are the right documentations to look at, these RFC documentations. And actually, one thing that is usually mentioned a lot is, if you really want to understand the cloud, make sure you are really good with networking and really good with the Linux. Yeah, if you're really good with those, it's easier for you to get into the cloud. And also, something I wanted to mention. When you are doing an interview for, let's say, AWS, no matter the level you are at, as long as it's a technical interview, you have time to just be asked networking questions entirely. And then you also have time to just be asked Linux questions entirely. Yeah, actually, you find if it's entry level, like now the internship, you're not even asked cloud concepts. You're asked majorly Linux and networking. So if you're like really good at those, it's easy for you to get in and to even understand what goes on in there. Yeah. So
Nice. Okay, the next question is from Maxwell. Hi. Between Azure and AWS, which is more implemented in organizations and what to prioritize?
I can't. Okay, I don't have the statistics, so I may not know. But what I can say is, for each implementation, it depends with what they want, the offerings they get, and then once they analyze and see what communicates to them more, then they'll pick it. Let's say they don't want a robust system; they just want something that works. Then they will pick the one that will offer them just something that works. When they look at their budget and they see the money they're allocating can only cater to something specific, then they'll pick that. I don't want to be biased on a cloud provider, but like it depends with what they're looking for and then how they'll pick it. But you see, if you want more control on your system, AWS is better because AWS allows you to like go into the pit of Linux and understand if you're troubleshooting, which commands are you using. Like you have more control from that side because it's based on those concepts. But when you just want something that is more graphical, user-friendly, and the likes, Azure will be better. Yeah.
Great. You might as well tell them that most of the companies, if they're using Windows, they're using Azure. Because Microsoft, what do you call it, bundles renewal certificates with the Azure environment. So most companies that use Windows, they will use their cloud services as Azure. So they're mostly inclined into the Azure environment.
Okay, it makes total sense. Because now you find even the services they offer, let's say it's Defender, Microsoft Defender, they're just shifting it to Microsoft Defender for cloud. So it's even easier for them to configure the system because they already know how it works on their system. So now it's just shifting it, tweaking it a bit. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, the next question from Chris Byron. Believe when you're speaking about your time at Amazon, he's asking examples of projects you did.
Okay, that's interesting. So the project I did with our detection system. Yeah, we integrated the provisions like Lambda and the likes, and we built a fraud detection system that can even be utilized by banks now. Yeah, and then from there if I can mention first, the end goal was to make sure that we understand how the well-architected framework works, and we earn our we know how solutions architects are able to understand how to build a system. That was the end goal of the internship, if I can call it that. So, we did earn the certification, yes, but then now in everything we were doing, it was more of we are falling back to the well-architected framework. And when I speak about the well-architected framework, we have concepts like cost, operational excellence, sustainability, performance, and so on. So, based on these concepts, we now came up with the project we wanted, which was a fraud detection system that now runs on their resources, and it can be utilized by the public. And from there, we wrote a press release document and frequently asked questions that we believe will arise from the system that we created. And from there, now it was reviewed by the managers from Kenya, SA, Dublin. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Okay. The next question by Dennis. Does AWS give free subscriptions to students like Azure?
Okay. I'm trying to understand, but my assumption will be speaking about subscriptions means getting credits to deploy resources on the console. And if I get into that, I don't know if I can open my system right now. But whenever you create a new account, you are given free credits. No matter if you're for them, they don't look at whether you're a student or not. They just give you credits. Yeah. Azure, I remember Azure, there was that provision. But for this one, for AWS, it's just as long as I'm not able to open. I don't know where it is now. I wanted to get in and check the actual number of credits, but I don't know if I will. Okay, let me just try and see. So you're given the credits, and then also something interesting is whenever you deploy your first EC2 instance, you're given additional credits. But then what you need to do is the moment you log in, remember to come and shut down that server the next day, early in the morning. Yeah, so that you're not, because it will continue running, and as it runs, it's accumulating cost. So you need to just come, deploy it, let's say like tonight, and then now the next day in the morning, come and shut it down. And please put a reminder to shut it down, because you might forget. And it pays, it's a pay as you go. So the moment time continues, it also adds up. So you come and you shut it. And when you shut it, you are given $20 of credit, I think, if I'm not wrong. I think the first one is $100, and then for just creating an account, even if it's a free tier account. And then now you're given $20 for deploying an EC2 instance. And there's something, I think it's Cost Explorer, or there's something related to cost. I'm forgetting the name, but I'll check it and probably send it in the group. When you go and you provision, I think it's cost savings or something. If you go and you launch that, you're given an additional $20. So now you have a total of $40 for you to now start deploying resources in your system. Yeah, so you're given the free credits. But then now, something to note is you should make sure you are monitoring everything so that you don't get billed all of a sudden for leaving resources running. Yeah, but you're given free credits, yes.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Then a question from Austin. What advice would you give someone transitioning from networking or system administration into cloud security? Before you answer that, to the people present, kindly drop your usernames in chat. We're going to do the Wheel of Names thing that we did last week to give out the 3 vouchers. Yeah, so just to repeat the question for you, Faith, what advice would you give someone transitioning from networking or system administration into cloud security?
Networking to cloud. Okay, actually, from that perspective, it's actually easier because you already understand how networks work. Because networks are like if you configure the network wrong, you have everything wrong. More so in the cloud. So because you already have grounded knowledge on networks, it's actually easier. So what I'd say is start from the foundational knowledge. We usually take theoretical knowledge for granted. We want to just get in, get our hands dirty, which is nice, yes. But then there's something that the book says, and we can find that we want to break and make as we are going, but then we forget that actually it's just a statement in what the documentation says. So it's usually nice to also have the grounded theoretical knowledge that when you see it practically, it's easier for you to even understand what's going on. So I'd say you start with the theoretical knowledge, and when you look at something like AWS Skill Builder, okay, I know there are courses that are free, and there are others that you need to pay for you to access. So Skill Builder is usually like the central point for all knowledge. I had not. I didn't want to sign in, but yeah, so the knowledge that you need is right here. Even if you just start with the foundational stuff, and then now from there, you now look at the practical aspects. Actually, when you come here, there are free practical labs, if I'm not wrong. So when you look at, you see this Simulan. Simulan is more of you do it by you practice by doing. So it's simulated, and then now you get into the console and you deploy stuff. So over here, you don't have to like provision resources in your own environment, because there you will incur a charge. But then now when you come and check this site, it's a simulation. So it's more of like a sandbox. You get in, do what you want to do, and then now you get to learn from it. So there's Simulan, and then there's also another one called AWS Cloud Quest. So Cloud Quest is more of gamified learning. It's like you're given a town, I don't know, they're having an issue with garbage collection, and you need to help them fix it, now using the concepts from AWS. So if you're someone who doesn't prefer reading knowledge continuously, you can pick up this gamified learning approach. And am I seeing it? This one, yeah, this one, Cloud Quest. So you see it more of like a town, an animation kinda, and then now you pick, and it's actually technical, like really technical as time goes by, and it has levels. It's even divided into the different certifications. You find there's AWS Cloud Quest for someone who is studying for solutions architecture. There's AWS Cloud Quest for someone who's studying for AWS Cloud Practitioner, and so on. So yeah, it's also a good way to upskill. Or also just pick courses from Udemy. On Udemy, there's a guy called Stefan Marek. He's really good. So if you would prefer to pick that up, watch this guy. He does like really good videos. Yeah, but also you need to look at what your end goal is. Because is your end goal moving into a career there? Or do you just want to know what is going on around you? Yeah, because I feel like when you define your goals really well at the start, it will push you to even get into whatever you need. Because now, okay, there are courses, yes, depends with whether you want to get certified. And there are also these labs from the Skill Builder. or also probably you want to be an AWS skill builder. Actually, you see the way in Microsoft there are student ambassadors. So in AWS there are people who are called skill builders. Okay, I know there are AWS cloud clubs, but also now for the larger community there are people who are called AWS skill builders. These are people who train the community on what AWS does, but you have to apply. And then now once you qualify for it, you are selected. I think it starts when the year starts around January, February, they open the application, you apply, show them what you've done and why you should become a skill builder. You get into the program and you continue building with them and helping the community to upskill. So if that is your goal, then you need to look at it from that perspective. Or also look at, okay, not all, but you should also look at what the community is doing. Yeah, so get into the AWS communities around, understand what is happening under security, the present people who are doing things, conversations that they're having at the moment, and what they want the community to grow in. So from that point, you can also get to learn a lot on what's going on, so that you're not just building in secret or in silence. You are able to see what is happening around you, and you stay up to date on what they're doing outside and the conversations they are having. Yeah.
Okay. So to add on that, on joining communities, one of the participants, Franco Juma, has said that in and around Mombasa, tomorrow there's an AWS community day happening, and he's dropped down a link
Okay.
for you guys to join. That is, if you're around Mombasa. Then Lord Sudo had asked, what kind of systems do you work with at Coop Bank? Any examples maybe that you're able to share?
Okay. I'd say, of course, we have the customer-facing apps like internet banking, like internet banking, for example. And now we have the integrations that now are tied to what is happening now now let's say in accounts, if you want to book a loan, where are we going to store this data? Yeah, how is it being integrated in whatever is happening in the back? So it's more of the application, the integrations, and now what we're running in the core banking side of things. Yeah, so core banking is where now the heavy lifting happens. Yeah, so you at the front end, you're just doing things on the UI, and then now from there it speaks from the APIs, and it's done in the backend, in the now core banking systems. So yeah, I can say it's majorly that, but also there are aspects like DevOps. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know if I'm giving a surface level answer or if I'm answering the question.
Lord Sudo could confirm if she's answered your question. Meanwhile, as he's confirming, or Lord Sudo, you in a position to unmute and speak. Okay. Proceed to Mary's question. She says, thank you for the presentation. It was really great. Maybe you can tell us what a typical day looks like for you at work, and also what skills do you think you made you get the job?
Typical day. Okay, of course, there are meetings, but so I can take it from this angle of the business guys. Okay, let's say there's there's the business owner from the respective teams. If it's guys who, okay, I'm picking on loans so much. Let's say guys from tax and assurance, guys from auditing, guys from investments like, let's say, money market funds and whatnot, and they want a system to be built for them. So these are the guys we call business owners. And then now from there, we have now the business change management team. These are the guys who now receive the requirements from the business owners, and then now they like document what the business owner wants. And from there, once they have everything like the functional and non-functional requirements, then now they come to us So when they come to us, now the architecture team, we are supposed to bridge the gap between these business guys and the technical guys. So we are supposed to like translate what they require into a technical implementation. And by that, now you have to define how the system is going to sit. So you have to look at, okay, aspects like infrastructure, first of all, the sizing, the network, how it's going to communicate. And then now you look at that application, the technology stack that you guys use. What is it? How is it going to be developed? Which APIs are going to be involved? And stuff like that. So after defining it and how the process will flow, and then now you document it and you now liaise with the developer team. So when you liaise with the development team, they're the actual implementers who are going to like write the code and bring the system into life. So once that has been done, and then now, okay, there are people I'm forgetting. There's a project manager, of course, and there's someone from quality assurance. So after the development is done, and then now there is the aspect of now testing, system integration tests, user acceptance tests, and then conducting mock, let's say mock migrations into production. And then now from there, you now look at, okay, what are the aspects that still need changing? They come back, they're documented, they're designed, and then now they're sent to the developer for implementation. So I can say my typical day is I could be having, okay, when I'm speaking about meetings, it could be a meeting with the guys from business. It could be a meeting with the developer team for the handover so that they can start the development. So this is from the angle of meetings. Or maybe tests are being done and they want troubleshooting, so you have to be in a working session. But also there's the aspect of creating now the solution designs. So the documentations, designing the system, and now handing over to the developer. But there's also the aspect of the APIs. So making sure that you have layers with the guys in core banking to be able to fetch for you the data that sits there and to be able to integrate now with the application. So you also come in at that level of making sure that, okay, these APIs, how are they secure? And what security mechanisms are we using? And also the fields that they're picking, are they the fields that we want? Are the fields mandatory or not? So yeah, it's more of, how do I put it? Sort of advising on how things should move, and also just making sure that they fit in the standards of the well-architected framework. When I'm speaking about cost, operational excellence, performance, security, sustainability. So you see, like security is now coming in as subdomain in whatever we do. But I know that there are organizations that have domain architects. So you're just a security architect, you're just a network architect, you're just an infrastructure architect specifically. But now for us, it's more of an all-rounded setup. Yeah, but I know there are domain-specific architects. Yeah, and okay, what I can say, what got me here? Okay, so you're having a teachable attitude, first of all. And you see when they say that you should build your muscle because luck is opportunity meeting preparation. Yeah, so when I was in Amazon, they were saying that it's like the whole training that we had was centered on solutions architecture. Even though it was solutions architecture from a cloud perspective, but you find that these roles that they have are universal, and no matter the system that you are accessing. So from there, because it was like for any new joiner, actually, for any new joiner in AWS, you have to earn the solutions architect certification. And it's not easy because it's not like an entry-level certification. You have to like have deep knowledge on what they do to be able to do that certification. So sitting there and working through it and preparing for that certification and even acquiring it is what enabled me so much to actually get this role, because it is more of architecture. And it was just whatever they were looking for in this certification, but now from a different aspect of the systems are not the same as the ones that you are using back there. So it's more of having the transferable knowledge and knowing how it's going to fit into the next step that you're going to be into. Yeah, so you can say, just build your muscle, make sure you see these things you're doing right now and you don't see how beneficial they're going to be at the end. You never know when they'll be beneficial. So just keep building and keep working at it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see where's the next place. Maxwell had also mentioned in regards to certification, he said one can consider the CARTP certification from Altered Security, Certified Azure Red Team Professional, and he's mentioned that they also have some labs for free for Azure pen testing. James Tiongo asks if you can be his mentor. Mtafuatana baadaye.
Nishaftaken.
Okay. Then I have a question from J. James. For someone maybe in intermediate level of cloud security and wants to get more practical, how will someone maybe do cloud projects? Is it in your home lab or in a particular cloud provider for someone who wants to create their own scenarios?
Okay, that's a really good question. Actually, it reminds me what I was supposed to share at the end of the presentation. There is something called AWS Flows. So this is someone who sat and decided to create scenarios on okay, let's say resources that are not configured well in an AWS console. So he named it AWS Flows, but it's majorly centered on S3 buckets. Actually, this is what we were going to do next. Okay, not next, but like this is one of the labs that we were going to do. It was supposed to be the second one that we will do together in follow-up sessions. So this guy is called Scott Piper, and when you look at this site, it has levels. So you start from level 1 up to I think level 8, 6 or 8. I'm not sure. And it's okay. See if you can find the first subdomain. Need a hint. Visit hint 1. So it's more, you see the way you usually like capture flags. So it's more or less the same. Capture the flag, and then now you come in. You will type in the site of the place that you have opened here on the section of the URL, and then now you get into the next level and so on. So just to give you a feel of what that is all about before you even come in, because I know you can get confused on what all this is about, you can check on Medium. There are guys who have done it and spoken about it. So just to get like an overview of what is going on, you can check there first. Like this one. And then now you come to the console and you come now there and you handle those tasks. So you see here there's buckets of file, misconfigured buckets, permissions. Oh, sorry. When they speak about buckets, there's a point where I had mentioned that there is storage in the cloud. And when I talk about storage, for example, now for AWS, they have something called S3. So S3 is now where storage happens. And in S3, we have buckets. So buckets are like okay, let me just use the literal bucket. So in this bucket, you have whatever you have stored, let's say the data that you have stored there. So these buckets are what constitute S3 resources. So here, even when they say misconfigured bucket permissions, there's a way that you need to configure who can access what and what they can do. And then we have leaked secrets. Secrets are the usernames and passwords, and encrypted snapshots. I had mentioned snapshots are the ones that are used when you are moving, let's say, from an active setup to a DR setup, and you want you want it to be a replica of what was deployed on your first setup. So a snapshot can be taken, and then now it's used to back up what you're now going to have on the DR setup. And we have metadata exposure. Metadata is more of time, like the content that is usually found when something is done. Ni kama ile inakwanga tu ka tag. This is the time it was done, this is the size, and all that. And we have also IAM misconfigurations. This can be really nice because I know IAM is the major aspect of everything and access to a system. So you can come read through, and then now from there, go back to the site, this one, and now read through whatever they're saying you do and practice it. So this is one of them. And then there's also another one called CloudGoat. So when you look at CloudGoat, it's actually on GitHub. This is one of the labs we were to do. So we were supposed to do this one and also do that one for AWS Flows. But you can go check them out so that when we come, you already have some prior knowledge on it. So if I can go to the README section, vulnerable by design cloud deployment tool. And then now you capture flags in there. But now for this one, because okay, you want to practice it yourself, so you have to make sure that you have Linux, you have Python, you have Terraform, because they come in handy so much under this setup. Then there's AWS CLI and Azure CLI. But okay, these are things that you can actually find ways around it, even if you can find that this is surface level information. But the good thing is right now we have AI. So you can just go tell it, okay, how can I download AWS CLI? I'm using Windows. How can I move to Linux? Then now you'll get to learn about aspects like Git Bash. Git Bash enables you to run Linux commands on your Windows machine. And we also have WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, though that one usually slows down your system. So if you have a system that has a low RAM, it can frustrate you. But I feel like Git Bash is better. So you can look at Git Bash, install it, see if there are any missing configurations. If you find an error, come to ChatGPT, paste it there and ask it how you can go about it and then troubleshoot for yourself. Yeah, so there's this. And then when I come down here, and this is the setup, and then now these are the scenarios. You see now there's IAM again. And you're told how to do it, data secrets, Beanstalk. These are majorly AWS resources. IAM privilege escalation, Lambda privilege escalation, SQS. So we have from easy, medium, and hard. Yeah, so you can look into them, all of them, if they do interest you. Yeah, that is it for now. I know also Hack the Box and Try Hack Me have the AWS. The cloud labs. But now the issue is with them, you have to pay. Those are like premium. That is premium content for them. But these ones are available and you can do them in your system. Yeah. I think that is what I can say for now.
Okay, the next question by Joel was, how do you manage secrets and credentials in a cloud environment, e.g. AWS Secrets Manager, Azure Key Vault, HashiCorp Vault, etc.
Okay, that is quite technical, but there is a way that you define them. I wish I could access my console right now. So you define them, and once you set them up, you also state how long they're going to sit before they are rotated. When I speak about rotation is the time when you are now supposed to come and change. Yeah, so there's key rotation, and then there's a centralized way of managing. And you also define if these keys, it's you who is going to create them, or they're going to be if it's AWS that is going to give you the keys, or it's you who is going to like create them, and then now they are managed by AWS for you. Yeah, but okay, I had a presentation on that some time back. I think I can also just check it up and send it as well. Yeah, it's a bit more in depth on this.
Okay. Do I ask the next question?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the next question. Usernames. Chris Byron also wants to be your mentee. So you have 2 mentees from this session.
Okay. You can just text me. I think my number can be seen on the...
Yeah, I'll tag you. I'll tag you in the group.
Okay.
Okay. Lotsudo asked what security